All right, we are live, and you may begin whenever you're ready, Michael.
Welcome to tonight's November 19th Design Review Board meeting. I am calling us to order. I have a quorum of 7 out of 9 members. I think we're expecting maybe one more. I don't have any opening remarks. Do I hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So move.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Agenda passes. Staff, do we have some last meeting minutes?
Yes, October 15th, October 22nd, November 5th, and November 12th.
So I hear a motion to approve October 15th, October 22nd, November 5th, and November 12th meeting minutes.
So
No.
move.
There's a motion by John, seconded, I think, by Emily.
Yes.
So we'll go with that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, motion passes 7-0. I'm looking for any general member comments that are not in reference to any application tonight. Are there any general member comments? I don't see anybody raising their hand. All right, so we can move into the agenda. So we have up item F is 1629 Valencia Way.
The applicants are here. I'm just sending them a prompt to unmute.
The applicant is here.
What? I can't get around you.
Hello. Welcome back. It's been a while. But it looks like you're back now with a plan to tackle this sunroom bump out. Oh, I think they muted themselves.
Hi there, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So you guys are back with a plan for this sunroom bump out, right?
Correct.
Awesome. So if you want to walk us through kind of your new plan, and then we will let you know if we have any questions, and then we'll go around the room and discuss.
Sure. So I think this is an older plan that you guys had actually drawn up for us. There should have been another attachment with another drawing.
Page 19.
There we go. So what we're proposing basically is to put the synthetic cedar shake on the top roof pitch to get rid of that asphalt, and then to put the natural cedar shake around the window frames, and then to replace the windows with what's already in there. I believe it's an Echo Star Pill or Echo Pill windows. And then we're just basically replacing those with horizontal sliders.
Keeping the 3.
Yeah, there we go. Encompass.
And is that existing side window, is that already a slider?
It's not. It's a.
Like a picture?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a.
Okay.
It's a picture window.
Okay.
Which we had a couple sentences in there about it, and actually, if we were gonna pitch you guys one thing that may be a little different, it would actually be to keep that window for a couple different reasons. If you want to talk about it now, we can, or later on.
No, yeah, we'll see if anyone has any questions about it. And then we can go from there. Were you guys going to add any sort of fascia board or anything along the front there, or basically it's just going to be the existing overhang, just add the synthetic shingles versus the non-synthetic?
We're just trying to address the yes, get rid of the 3-ply asphalt shingles, add the synthetic, change the windows, and if possible, which it sounds like, at least for now, the guys that we worked with originally can add it in the blue there.
Okay.
Add the regular cedar shake to sort of fill that out.
Okay, and are you putting any trim around the window, or it's going to be a trimless window or?
Yeah, so it'll be the exact windows that are in there now, but just sliders. So it's there's not much trim around it.
Okay.
If you scroll down, there should be like current photos.
So they're basically going to apply this right over like the T111 or whatever that is now that's on there.
Correct. Yep.
The biggest feedback we got about these windows and the wall in general is to do anything short of just putting same size windows in there would effectively mean taking down the whole wall, at least the way that the contractor told us how it seems the roof is connected to that wall there.
We'd have to do a whole new framing.
He basically said it would triple the scope and cost of your project if you wanted to do anything different besides. I was like, can you just pop in new 29 by 29 windows? He goes, yeah, sure, no problem. And I said, well, what about they gave us some ideas about the 2 and the 1 and maybe one big one. And he is like, listen, if it went from putting new windows in to massive reconstruction effort, and we are
Okay.
not looking for that.
Okay. Let me go around the room and see if anyone has any questions, and then we'll have some discussion. Okay.
Sure.
Samantha, do you have any questions?
No question. Thank you.
Sarah?
No questions, thank you.
Camelia?
No questions, thank you.
Emily?
None for me.
John?
The only question I have is it looks like you'll be matching the windows that I saw in the previous photo on the upper floor with a vertical, sliding window instead of the horizontally divided window. So, is that correct?
Yep. For the best of our knowledge, the windows that were installed up top were these encompassed by Pella windows. So we're going to do the same thing, but just lower.
All right. That's all I have.
Okay. Brian?
That was the same question I had that John just asked, so thank you for clarifying that.
And did Mike B join or no?
Mike B's here. No additional questions, sir.
All right, cool. Yeah, I already asked my questions, so we can have some discussion about it. Does anyone have any thoughts on it to start? I mean, I can give my 2 cents, but I'm going to wait till the end. So, Samantha, what do you think? You have any comments?
I really do not. This is really not in my preference to begin with, but I know it was already there, and now is kind of changing the window style and try to replace things around the window. So no, I do not have comments on this.
Okay. Sarah, do you have any comments?
I remember this from previous ones, and I appreciate the changing of the windows so that it has the vertical sliders to match the surrounding area. That was all. Thank you.
Camelia?
No comments from me, thank you.
Emily?
No comments from me, Michael. Thank you.
John?
The only question I have is it looks like there's, if we look at this photograph on the side, the cedar shakes actually pop out a little bit further on the sides of the building past, to embrace the side window, and it sticks out a little bit further than the shakes on the lower, we'll say 30 inches, 3 feet below the windows. And you're going to be maintaining that same kind of offset, just basically putting your shingles over this framing that we see right there. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Brian?
Nothing from me.
So the only thing I'm gonna say is like what I struggle with is how this is gonna be executed well. And the main reason why is like as an example, this picture we're looking at now, there's these 1x4 corner boards as an example. That the cedar needs to kind of die into something. I mean, you can turn the corner with it, which is a nice detail that they used to do back, when they built kind of these salt boxes, kind of style Cape Cod shingle houses. But this has a corner board there. And like in the sketch, they don't show the corner board extending because this trim kind of sits out proud already of the siding or whatever we want to call it, the vertical stuff that's up there now around the windows. And I just worry that I just don't know how well this is going to be able to be executed without, I mean, I think they're going to have to dismantle that stuff around the windows anyhow. And I wonder if it really is worth putting shingle between the windows, because I really don't think that it's not really a typical detail for how they would do cedar around if this was like, let's say a 3-bay window, it almost would make more sense just to be, almost just use a fat piece of wood, 1x6 or whatever it is in between the windows versus trying to stuff the cedar between them. My original, my sketch that I provided as input was basically pushing the windows together. I now see that there's, zero header, and basically they're using the wall as a bearing wall to hold who knows what type of roof joists. I don't even, I mean, maybe they're 2x4s. I don't know. It doesn't look like it's very substantial, to be honest. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is if this was a project that someone came to us before, and I know you guys bought the home and it, this was, included in the sale. So I'm not, criticizing you. I like to review projects like if it was brand new to me. If this was something somebody was building, would I approve it? And to me, it feels like it just still needs detail, like that would be the way you would actually construct it. And I know that would impact the structure of it. Because let's say we leave the picture window as an example, right? Which I'm all fine for. That has trim around it.
Right.
That has trim. And then now on these front windows, we're going to try to stuff cedar between the windows. It's just going to be inconsistent. And so I'm trying to find a good balance if we're going to try to save
definitely
the
going to be
windows.
inconsistent, and we
would prefer not to put the cedar between the windows up front.
I mean, we're only talking about the trim because we're being that's
what we were told.
We're being told to address it. I mean, if it's up to us, we're fixing the roof. I mean, I think the most glaring thing is the roof. Second one, okay, got it. Windows facing the wrong way. I mean, if it was up to us, we'd take care of those things and call it even Steven, if you will.
Yeah, just trying to. And then the synthetic roof, I think that's a good idea to kind of give it the same, but not because that's an approved material, right, in your cluster.
Yes.
Correct.
And what the contractors had told us was that if we use real cedar shake up top, the pitch just isn't steep enough that it may promote rotting quicker. So they encouraged the cedar shake, or the synthetic,
which was allegedly why they didn't put it on in the first place, but also had something to do with it was a rush emergency. Apparently, the old roof was leaking, and they quickly changed it and asked for forgiveness later, which we are.
Here we are.
Yeah. Staff, remind me, was the original sunroom bump approved when it was like all glass and frame, basically? Was that an approved modification to the structure?
When it was all glass, I believe that was the original model.
It was an addition.
I don't think so. I think it was an addition.
Yeah, 1998 is what I saw.
And it was approved. I'm just running through the history of it just so I can.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was approved. I would say that it wasn't.
It was grandfathered.
Yes.
Okay. What's the cluster saying? Is the cluster have any input? Have they said anything?
From us, we've spoke to Jan, the president, and she's on our side. She wants to help us. She's looking for more. They haven't really said anything to us personally besides trying to help us make it work, but they know that it kind of comes down to you guys. So looking for what your recommendations are.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm picturing it like if somebody came to me tomorrow, let's say your neighbor came to me tomorrow and said, I want to build the same thing that I just approved next door. Would I
Yeah.
say yes? And that's where it's really tough, right?
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't, to be
Right.
honest with you, right? Just because the way the construction is, it's just not. I mean, honestly, no contractor would even be able to build this thing the way it is now because it's
Yeah.
code compliant with the way they did this header and non-header, really. So
Yeah, that's exactly what we're running into now.
what I'm trying to find a way is like, is there a way if we use cedar between the windows, can we kind of trim this thing out with nice cedar that matches the cedar below that'll age? And then maybe there's a little bit of room. I mean, it looks like on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of these windows, there's enough gap to be able to fit a corner board and then put the shake and just kind of slowly have a small, and then but then still have an inside like 1x3. I mean, even heck, even a 1x3 with like a 1x4 header. I don't love trying to stuff the shingle between it. And I'm just one member, but I just think it's not gonna look any better. You're gonna spend all this money and then it's gonna be still, not the
Completely agree.
most attractive thing. So that I'm just trying to get to a better solution with what we're working with.
Mhm.
So, and I know I did this last time where we're like trying to design on the fly, but I don't know. Brian, do you have any input?
Michael, can we go to slide 13? I'm trying to understand your suggestion. See how they wrapped the corner with the sorry, the next door neighbor. Sorry, the next door neighbor to the left. If you scroll up on the page a little bit. Yes, yeah, and zoom in on their kind of roof.
The upper part?
Yeah. See how they took the cedar and just kind of wrapped the corner, but I think you're suggesting something different than that. You're suggesting putting like a trim board at the corner instead, right, to break the cedar?
Well, that's what it has now already. So like the bottom half of it already has that corner board. So I'm thinking like, let's extend it up, or they replace it completely with just one continuous piece of cedar. I mean, you can get 1x4 cedar and just run it up the corner all the way. And then try to fit and then have a 1x3 trim around the window. I just don't know how much space that's really going to leave us. It like the spacing of the existing windows is very unfortunate because that's ultimately what is driving this decision, and it's not great. But I see what you're saying, Brian. Like if you could wrap it, but I don't. That's what's tough is they don't really have a roof like that. There's kind of that overhang.
Yeah.
So the intent, they're not going to remove the shakes below that horizontal board, right? You guys are just going to. The idea is just to replace the cedar shakes over what the plywood or whatever we're looking at between the windows. You're not replacing anything below that horizontal trim, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, exactly that portion. Okay.
That's the right. Just the trim around the windows. And my comment here, and I like hearing the discussion. If we look at what we're being asked to do, right, is to say, hey, let's get this to the cluster guidelines, right? Well, why do we want to do that? Because we want it to look correct, look the same. Getting rid of that asphalt roof and flipping these windows around would make a huge difference. I mean, how close does that get us to acceptability in this very unique case? I'm just kind of excluding the trim talk, which I get it. You guys are the pros, and I'm not saying don't talk about the trim, but I'm kind of going devil's advocate here. If we really focus on just the roof and putting new windows in, I mean, does that get us 80% of the way there? That 95.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to even get a 1x4 fascia board on this thing, because without a fascia, it just looks like, you put up they put it, up on the over the weekend, and it just,
Michael, can I interject and perhaps throw a monkey wrench in and/or, just play devil's advocate for a second?
Sure.
Since the house is white, we have white fascia, we have white soffits, there's white on the windows already. Would it, I mean, keeping the lower part of the bump out cedar, I think makes sense, but would it be so bad if they just did the upper part in a nice white trimmed out detail, rather than, trying to comply and have it be cedar? Just say, hey, we're going to try and we're going to contrast it and have it look more similar to the rest of the white elements of the house. One, that I feel like that would be much easier to construct, and two, I don't think it would necessarily stick out from the surrounding houses that much. That's just an idea.
So kind of like, I mean, the picture's hard to see, but if slide 13, Steph, if you zoom in on that window on the neighbor's house, I mean, that's stucco on the right there, but they have a trim, like a big 1x6 kind of base,
Exactly.
and kind of working around it. And you're thinking basically where it's currently that non-cedar wood, basically put it as real trim, like you would normally trim out a window.
Yeah, I think that would be a solution that would not only look aesthetically pleasing, and add to your point, I wouldn't mind approving that on the next neighbor's application if it was trimmed out nicely and done in, a PVC that looked like it was intentional. And
I think as long as it's painted the house color, I think I could maybe get behind that. But I almost was thinking like, well, does it make sense just to, I mean, Hardy makes like those stucco looking panels. Like, does this just want to all be stucco? Like, and just paint it to match the house and just call it, I don't know.
I think either of those solutions, like doing Hardy stucco or doing a PVC trim, would be superior. And I mean, especially because you could then trim the bottom underneath the cedar which is basic.
Yeah, right. You could cover that all up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they literally could basically just put it right over top of what's there. I mean, they might have to pop off some of the cedar, but you almost could just put it right. You could trim the window and then just put that panel right over it. I still go back to that. I think it needs a fascia board, even if it's small and it's fake and they just somehow apply it to whatever structure is there. I just think it just looks so off without a fascia board.
I don't think shakes up between the windows is a good idea, because the size is going to be much smaller than the shakes below, and it's going to look pretty not so good. So I think the idea we're going to of basically trim boards around the windows is the best way to go.
Let's see how that.
Yeah, what's interesting about Emily's ideas, because there's a pretty strong precedent for it in the neighborhood where like the bottom of these cedar shake mansard roofs or whatever, there's a strong horizontal break there, and everything below it is kind of that painted stucco look.
Yeah.
And Michael, just to clarify, you are referring to doing a fascia board along the bottom of the bump out, or do you want something underneath?
No, on the roof.
On the roof line.
True
Okay.
roof
Above the
fascia.
windows, yeah.
A true roof fascia. I mean, because it just looks so. I mean, I wonder how this thing stays up. Is basically what, and I'm trying to eliminate that allure of what it is. And it may, the fascia would kind of overlap the top of the window, and I think that would be okay. I think as long as it had a fascia, I think it would be. They're already replacing the roof, so I feel like they're gonna find out what structure is under there. Once they rip off that shingle, there's got to be, at least plywood, I would hope. And so there might be a way that they can put some outriggers or something that can hold a fascia board, even if it's just between the windows. That would be fine to be able to hold some sort of fascia there. I like the idea of the trim, doing white. Well, let's not call it white trim, but trim that matches the stucco. I could get behind that. I kind of almost just would rather have the whole bump be the house color at that point and just be smooth or, you know, stucco looking boards that just cover up everything and just make it feel like it's a bump out of the stucco with the cedar roof. I think could look, like you said, approvable from a standpoint of a new construction. And just get rid of the cedar completely on the thing besides the roof.
I don't mind the little cedar skirt, you know, personally.
I wouldn't either, but then do you add then a fascia down below or a freeze board or whatever we want to call it down covering that structure of the floor?
I would, yeah, I would beef that up a little bit. I would also wrap those posts that are dinky dinky, but that's more of an aesthetic thing because they just look too small to be holding up a structure like that, even though it's structurally sound. But I would add a trim piece at the bottom if we did the trim on the top just to create a little bit of a sense of balance. But I think honestly, I'd be fine with any of those permutations that we've sort of been discussing and saying like you could, you know, for the cluster or whatever, you could either do this or this. Like I don't think that there's currently we're not batting around what I would consider a bad combination or a bad option. You could either just do the cedar roof and a stucco house. You could have cedar roof, cedar skirt, and, you know, siding or stucco. Like I think that any of those combinations would be one, a vast improvement, and two, again, approvable on another build. And this isn't necessarily to say that we're creating a standard for the neighborhood. We could make a suggestion on this particular site that we know we could approve in the future, but it wouldn't necessarily hold any of their neighbors or anybody else in the cluster to doing the exact same thing. It would just have to be approvable by us.
Yeah. And almost like what we're talking about is if you go to slide 12, staff, maybe you're on slide 12 and I'm just zoomed in right now. But like, see how the neighbor's deck has that fascia board and then the posts are, you know, all painted the house color. That's, you know, that's kind of the look that I'm, you know, picturing that could, you know, fit in and then have, I mean, I would like it to all be stucco, but I could maybe get behind the board of, you know, having cedar in that one little section as like a little water table or something, let's call it. And then from there up, it would all be, at a minimum though, I'd replace like to the left of that picture window, I would get rid of that cedar there and go to kind of a stucco look because it's going to get messy with trimming that out and all that.
I concur with the full stucco look so that it just blends in because you look at that horizontal band of the full elevation, I'm not seeing any cedar at that second level.
Yeah.
So if you went to the full stucco, that would, I think, would create that cohesiveness in the facade and then have that bottom layer like you're talking about, use those same elements as that patio to speak to that and make those posts white, the same color. I think then I concur, Michael. I think that really moves it in the direction of looking purposeful in the larger context.
Yeah, and to me, that's actually probably going to be easier than what they were going to try to do because now they really can just skin the face of the whole thing with these bigger panels and just trim the window like a normal, you know, just like in the cluster already happens where they have this big, you know, kind of 1x6 base, 1x4 base, whatever sill piece, and then just make it all the stucco, and that can by turn cover the, you know, the bottom wood. I just think that would look better. So how can we approach this? I think we still maybe need a drawing. I don't know, even if it's the similar sketch. Is the homeowner on, can you guys unmute the homeowner? Are they here still?
Yes, they're still here. I'm unmuting them now.
Hey there. Yeah, we're here.
So are you guys following kind of what we're saying? Are you guys open to that kind of as an option?
It sounds like an interesting way forward. First of all, painting sounds like a path of much less resistance. I understand the idea of stucco. I guess I'm a little unclear right now on what that application might look like. I mean, is that
Yeah, so what we're suggesting is like a stucco panel. So James Hardy is a manufacturer, or there's some other manufacturers that make it, but it essentially is, it comes in like the same size as a sheet of plywood.
okay?
But it's made out of a fiber cement, and it kind of has that bubbly stucco feel to it. And it
Mhm.
can be a paint, and it usually just is applied right over your sheathing of your house. So like in this instance, they might have to take off a little bit of the shingle, but they literally could probably just apply it right over top of everything and cut out the windows. And then the windows would then end up getting trimmed on top of that, very similar to like how the stucco windows are in your neighborhood, where that trim sits proud of the stucco, right? It's not flush with the stucco, it's sticking out a little bit.
Mhm.
So literally they could do that effect, and then it all gets painted the same color as your house is. And then I think it honestly would be probably easier than what they were gonna try to attempt with the cedar. Plus, cedar is at its all-time high cost-wise.
Yeah, no, so first of all, yes, we'd definitely be open to working up a new some drawings and a new scenario for going that route. I mean, that sounds great. And also, I hadn't even noticed, just a quick comment, I hadn't even noticed the neighbors. That does look a hell of a lot better than the 3 different shades of brown and the posts. I mean, I'm with you on the same color as the house. Shocking. Looks a little bit cleaner, doesn't it?
So
It's the neighborhood a little bit better, yeah.
Yeah, and I just think it could work. So I think what could happen is, similar style drawing that you sent us. I mean, maybe meet with some contractors again, or if you've already picked one, they should be capable of getting that stucco panel that I'm talking about. And just saying, basically, we want to skin this whole structure and then trim the windows on top of that skin to make it look like it's like the stucco windows, and then it all gets, caulked and painted to match our house. And then replace the roof the way you had it. I mean, I still want to see a fascia board on the roof. I think even if it's a small one, I think it'll go a long way of making it not read like a piece of paper sitting up there.
Yeah.
And I think because they're ripping off that old roof, they could probably find a way to, even if they applied, a 1x3, or not a 1x3, but like a 2x3 on top of the plywood and ran it out. I mean, I think there could definitely be a way to achieve that and still give us that fascia look, which makes the roof look a lot more believable than it does now, because it just looks.
Yeah, quick follow-up. So the cedar skirt, if you will, beneath the windows, that's going away. That's becoming the big fascia board, or I'm sorry, the stucco insert. And then wouldn't that also require getting rid of the shingles on the left-hand side too, correct?
Correct. I think the only ones they might have to remove are those upper left ones to the left of the window, because I think those other shingles sit behind those existing trim boards. And I'm almost suggesting to like just literally apply this over top of what you have now, and then put the window trim on top of that. So it looks like, if you zoom into the left staff on the window that they have on their front of their face, if you see how does the stucco window, either the neighbors or theirs, if you can zoom to the left, or no, I guess there's no left in that picture. That one's kind of hard to see, but you can see how the trim, if you look at the neighbors to the right, is a little bit easier to see. Staff just right up, it's behind the tree. No, go back. It's behind the tree limb. But you can see how their trim actually sits out. You can see that shadow line.
Yeah.
Right, as an example. And you can see it in the clusters windows examples as well. Like that to me is then they apply the trim on the outside of this, and then it all gets caulked and painted, and it'll look clean, and I don't know. It to me it'll fit in. So if you look down, scroll down to the middle picture there. Because now your stucco board is going to be sitting outside of the window, very similar to this is. And then you just have this basically bottom sill piece on each window, and all your trim can match like kind of what's in the neighborhood already. And then in between the windows is just, you know, the piece of stucco basically applied right over the wood that's there. And then you just have the bottom piece, the bottom sill board to match. That looks like it's it looks like it's a 6-inch sill maybe. And I'm welcome to send another drawing to you guys, and you guys can try to talk to a contractor about that. But I think that'll get it to the point where it would be, in my opinion, approvable.
Love the idea, love the recommendation. This is the first time even hearing anything like that. We thought we were kind of stuck in a cedar plank purgatory there for a little bit with the going around the windows. So this has been a welcomed development.
Okay. Well, I guess let's do a motion. Well, I'll make a motion to defer to allow further study. It has been a little while, so I'm gonna put a timeline on it just because last time it took a little bit for you guys to get here. So
yeah, understood.
Just do a timeline of 60 days to resubmit. Well, with the holidays coming up, let's do 90 days just so you have a little bit of time because no one wants to be working on this on the holidays.
Appreciate that.
So do 90 days, and then that way, you know, that way you guys can get the work done in early spring, hopefully, and you guys can come before us in February, and we can kind of get this resolved, and I'll send an updated sketch to staff that they can share with you to try to be helpful.
That would definitely be helpful.
So there's a motion to defer with a time period of 90 days.
Second.
There's a second from Sarah.
Could you please clarify what they're bringing back and what specific documentation the DRB is looking for the owner to supply?
So I think right now we need a new facade material, which is what we're suggesting, a stucco panel. And I think the roof though and the windows, we like the approved, you know, what they've presented. I think it's strictly the facade that's going on the, you know, vertical surface is what we're asking for, a new updated, you know, sketch. I mean, similar to what they've sent in is fine. It just needs to be updated to be a new material, preferably the stucco panel, or even heck, if they want to do real stucco, they talk to somebody who can do a scratch coat and do real stucco. That would even be even better.
More expensive.
I know, that's why I haven't suggested it. I just was saying. But so yeah, so that's what I'm looking for, Cam. And I'm in recommending, you know, a 1x4, some sort of fascia on that roof, just to make it look more believable, I think would go a long way. So there was a motion, a second, some clarification. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against?
Aye.
Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 8-0. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you for your time, everybody.
All right, moving on to 11576 Greenwich Point. Do we have the applicant here?
Yes.
Awesome. Do you have your experts?
Yes, they are on the line.
Awesome. All right, so if you want to walk us through kind of what you guys did and kind of what you're looking to. I know you guys have made some adjustments since November 1st, it looked like. So if you could walk us through kind of where we're at now. I know I'm pretty sure most of us, if not all of us, went and saw it at night. We sent some pictures and videos around that we took while we were there. So take it away.
All right. So I'm going to ask that you unmute Andy Shoemate. We did make
Yep, I'm on.
Okay. We've actually made through this process, we've actually made this is now the third adjustment to the lights that are already installed. The first adjustment was there was a concern that the lights were on late at night, and so we moved the automatic turn off from 1 a.m. to 10 p.m. Then the lights were, while they were under the most egregious standard in Northern Virginia at 500 lumens, we had them at, we lower, and they were at about 400. We brought them down to 280. And then we just, made just yesterday, we finalized and got the parts in to do another adjustment. And Andy Shoemate, who is the senior designer at Daylum, can tell you more about that and the impact that has on the uplighting in the rear of the home. Andy?
Yep. So what we did just recently was we added hex lenses, and I turned on my camera so you can see, but we put hex lenses on all the uplights in the backyard that are essentially like a honeycomb lens that we make that go over the fixture, the uplights, that are a glare shield or a glare guard. It reduces the light output by 30% on top of the already lowest lumen output that we have the light set on now. And it also makes it so if, for instance, a neighbor next door or across the lake is looking at the lighting, it blocks any glare, but it's mainly to block glare at any angle, and also reduces the lighting by 30%. So we're in the we're around 160 lumens on the uplights now, which is extremely low, below any dark sky compliance I've seen in 15 years of doing this. So you know, that's the latest, and you know, I know it softened everything quite a bit, and I think the glare is or the light source is non-existent at this point, especially with the hex lenses put in. But you know, we'll kind of see what the neighbor thinks, but I think everything should look fantastic at this point.
You're on mute, Michael.
Hey, sorry. Is there an affected party, correct, staff? Are they here? Can we?
Yes.
From them?
One moment.
We'll hear from the affected party, then we'll come back to you guys, okay? Just as an affected party, you have 3 minutes to state your affected party status, and staff is keeping that time.
Nancy, I just sent you a prompt to unmute yourself. You are now
Okay.
unmuted.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just start out quickly and say I appreciate the efforts. I'm not sure which standard the DRB is looking at, whether this is landscape or security, given the additional information that was submitted. I would still say, even looking tonight, I took a picture, but the uplighting still seems fairly significant in terms of whether it's supposed to be security lighting. The trees are lit up beyond the peak of the house in the back. So I appreciate the security concerns. I've been burglarized myself, but personal opinion, which is all I can offer at this point, is that it seems like the standards say lighting should be focused downward or security lighting towards the house. And this doesn't seem to be the case in this, recognizing that there's been a significant investment of time and effort in trying to minimize the impact. And as I said, appreciate that, but still have concerns.
Great, thank you. Anybody else, staff?
We had Doris, but I was unable to identify her. Doris Cromwell, if you are present, if you could please raise your hand. I don't believe that she's present. And that's all we have, Michael.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, let me go around the room and see if anyone has any questions about the lights, and then we'll have some discussion. So Samantha, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
All right. Sarah, did you have any questions?
No.
Camelia, did you have any questions?
No questions. Thanks, Michael.
Emily,
No questions, thank you.
John,
No questions.
Brian?
Yeah, sorry, there was one thing I didn't understand. The hex lenses that you're putting on, have you put those on yet, or they're yet to be installed?
Yeah, we already put them on.
When did you
was
put 'em on?
that? That was going to be my question. What was the timing for that?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then you said you put them. You said you put them on all the uplights. Does that? Could you Does that include the lights that are like hanging in the tree? Get back to the house.
Yeah, those the downlights have a hex lens already built into the fixture, so that is included because we manufacture our own lights. We have our own manufacturing company called Sterling Lighting. Our downlight or moonlight has the hex lens already built in. It does not come included on the uplight. So those are in the downlights that are shining down from the trees, but the uplights we just added, and I use them mainly for a lot of times we uplight homes, and if you have columns across the front of your house, and I'll put them on the uplights right at the front door as a glare reducer, and dims the lumen output by a significant amount. So we put them on every uplight in the backyard. Last time we lowered because our lights, a feature of our fixtures is they're fully adjustable in brightness. They have 5 brightness settings. We already lowered them all to the lowest brightness that they come in, which is 230 lumens. And then we put in the hex lenses yesterday, which reduce them to down to 160 lumens, and also blocks glare from any angle.
Any other questions, Brian?
No, thank you.
Mike B.
I was going to ask about timing, so I'm good at this point, Michael. Thank you.
Okay. So my question, so each light has been reduced, so all the uplights have been reduced to the 230 lumens. But there's still, that's 230 lumens per fixture, correct? And they're all
Correct.
And they're all at 2700 Kelvin is the current color temperature of these, correct?
They're at 3000 K.
They're at 3000 right now. Okay. Yeah, because I'll be honest, I went there last night at 9:15. And I think the issue that I see with the project is that there's kind of this aura, like halo, created around the entire property. And I'm trying to figure out what contributes to that. And it seemed like the lights that are like about 15, 20 feet up in the trees seem to be contributing heavily to this. Are those also at the 230 lumen?
Those are a little bit, I think those are in the maybe 350, 400 range. I would have to check the downlights. I don't think they're quite as low.
All I saw was the spec sheet said basically it had 805 lumens. But it sounds like your lights are adjustable, so I just didn't know what that could be adjusted to, because it just seems like those are the ones that are really contributing to the, I don't know, this aura that almost is putting off on the property. I think that the uplights aren't really helping it, but I think the mitigation efforts that you've done seem to have definitely.
The downlights are at the lowest. I'm sorry, they are at the lowest.
And what lumens are those at?
Those are at 230 lumens also.
Okay. Because like all of the pathway lighting, like all the mushroom lights and all that stuff, I'm okay with. I don't have any kind of big issue with. It's really like anything that's contributing to this kind of aura. Like every tree, instead of having one uplight, some have 2, some have even 3. And it's like, is it all completely necessary?
Well, it's not. it's necessary when the like for instance in Colin's backyard, he has wide birch trees. If you're a good lighting designer, you don't put one light on wide trees. You need 2 lights, sometimes 3. I have multiple trees in my yard. I have 5 lights on them. It depends on the size of the tree. It's not about the brightness is I always go on the side of soft, elegant, subtle. The last thing I want is to have something that's gaudy or Vegas. I want pretty. But you need multiple lights to get the canopy of the tree, the width of the tree. So that's why certain trees have multiple lights. We go softer, but you need multiple lights on larger trees if it's a good design.
Okay. Let me go around and see if anyone has any comments, and then we'll see if there's any other additional kind of questions for you guys right now.
I think, Michael, I think that Patrick, he's the owner at Daylum. He would like to talk at some point. I just don't want to miss him. And then there's an interested party, Rena Vacay, Dr. Rena Vacay, and she is my next door neighbor, and she'd like to has a few words as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to hear from them. So let's start with the interested party. And I'll use the same rules for an affected party that they have 3 minutes to state their interested party status. I mean, at the end of the day, if she's your direct neighbor, to me, she qualifies as an affected party. An affected party doesn't always mean they're negative. It can be, a positive. So if she's willing to speak, to me, she's actually an affected party if she is the neighbor. So
she's on the she's on the call.
I am on the call. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to go ahead and have 3 minutes? That'd be great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I want to say that I've lived here for over 15 years, and I don't think there is a more respectful, diligent neighbor in the neighborhood than the Egan's. And I know they've gone extreme to, remediate any issues here. And I want you to know that being an immediate neighbor, I feel no effect on, oh gosh, somebody's trying to call me. I'm sorry. I hope it doesn't break the, are you still there?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. I think if anything, everything they've done, including the lighting, increases the property value. I am not materially impacted. It's not gonna affect me in other ways. And I don't see that glow. I can go out on my back deck and I don't have the glow, and I'm right next door. So in my humble opinion, I think that it's well done, and I think they've remediated to an extreme.
And can you clarify, do you live if you're looking at the front door, do you live to the left or to the right?
To the right.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm very close to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have no problem whatsoever. In fact, I see it as a positive. And, everybody's mentioned the safety factor. And I agree. I mean, people could come into the backyards from the boats, on the lake. So I'm very happy with the lighting.
All right. Thank you for your comment.
You're welcome.
And then you had said the owner.
Yeah, Patrick Harders, if you could unmute him. Go ahead, Patrick.
Hello, I'm Patrick Harders. I'm the owner of Daylum. I'm also the owner of Sterling Lighting. I've designed all the products. I actually really appreciate you guys doing this. I'm working with Prince William County Board of Supervisors right now for the data centers and the transmission of light pollution that they are having. I'm a dark sky compliant member, 25 years experience. I'm the only certified LC, which is the highest designation in lighting design that's recognized by the International Engineering Society on the East Coast. That's really exclusively in landscape lighting. And this is a challenging topic. In fact, I ran a seminar this summer, brought in 4 of the top lighting designers just to talk about this. How do it's 2 issues. There's light pollution that goes into the sky, and there's also glare control. Are 2 major things. The easy solution is say all lighting is bad and everybody lives in the dark, and try and put your 4-year-old child to bed and not have a nightlight going, and you'll see that people like light. We're emotionally connected. You look at the theater, you look at sporting events to lighting coliseums and everything else. It really enhances the beauty. We go to a beautiful restaurant, the lighting makes all the impact. When we do lighting design, we focus on a number of things. Number one is holistically bringing up the beauty of the property without contributing to night glare and lighting the sky. There's a number of things we can do. So, typically it's going to be the one solution people say is just put one light on a tree or do something like that. And the issue is you tend to go brighter, and we want to go softer, softer, softer. We also want to design our systems with 95 to 100% of the light being captured by the object we are lighting. So that's why we did the light trespass study. Light trespass studies are really important, in the communities that I've worked with. I think that's an essential thing, is to require a light trespass study, just to make sure light isn't going beyond what it's supposed to. If we're prescribing not only light fixture, but where it's going, the direction and everything else, we should be making certain it doesn't go beyond the trees. We make certain it doesn't go beyond the house or glare into the neighbors. I was at Colin Egan's house last week, and I had an opportunity to look at the neighbors, and they had two neighbors with omnidirectional lights, one security lights, one just a coach light. And that light can be seen from across the pond. And in fact, in Canada, they did a study. They took a 7-watt incandescent lamp out of a child's nightlight, put it on the shore of a lake, took the boat out 3 miles, and can still see that light source from 3 miles. So a lot of the solutions that you hear is like solar lights. They tend to be omnidirectional. They put light in every direction, and they actually are very glaring. Only using downlights seems like the best solution. The lights you're talking about are downlights. The issue is you have to take into account the reflectance. So if you put a downlight onto travertine or to white concrete, the reflectance is actually going to add more to the sky glow than having a 200 lumen light on a small tree. So, we've tried to do everything we can on this property from the very beginning to say, hey, let's make certain we design it so that it stays in the property. And if there's you have a challenge, you have condos that are 3-4 stories tall across the street, across the pond. So, if they're looking down on it, the glare guards we designed are designed to reduce, so you don't see light trespass coming from one neighbor's to the other. So you're reducing the glare. I think, one of the important things to do is having light shut off. And, we put in a control system that he controls from his phone and from an app that turns off all his lights at 10 o'clock. That allows people to have the enjoyment of the night sky. If you go to the Outer Banks, they do 11 o'clock, which is one of the more progressive areas in the country for protecting the night sky. So Reston's doing a great job. The big culprit obviously is commercial lighting. If you go to Reston Town Center, that's what's putting the sky glow in. The data centers by where I live is where the sky glow is coming from, commercial. Even streetlights. If, I always challenge somebody, say, look in an airplane and see what you see. And it's going to be the commercial properties, because they're using 10,000, 20,000 lumen lights without glare control. So, our philosophy is think of candles, not spotlights. So softer, 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 and glare control. So if I'm lighting a tree properly, I do want to light it in 3-dimensional, which is going to require not just one light right up the trunk, but coming out and soft lights going into the tree, but then having the ability to turn it off. It provides safety, security. It brings out the beauty. So we don't want to give that up. While I'm a dark sky member, I'm working on the side to say, great lighting design isn't lazy, where it's just putting a light down, because you have to take in reflectance into that. And so on this property, we put a lot of time and effort to make sure that we were designing a system that would not impede into the neighbors' properties, that would look beautiful, enhance the property. And I think Mr. Egan's been very receptive to any suggestions we've had, including glare guard shrouds and things like that. So it's all
Patrick,
part of the
can I ask you a
beauty of the
question?
lighting design.
So this kind of I don't know if, and maybe you're the expert, so maybe you can tell me. So there's a couple things that are working against you. Is obviously, I think, I would say there's definitely great cutoff features of the lights. I think also, and I was curious with the neighbor, I asked whether they were on the left or the right, because there's also great landscaping along the left side of the property that none of the light escapes through those arborvitaes and shrubs that they have there. It really does a great job. I think
on the right side is where there's more light, and she's more
well,
adjacent.
Yeah, and the problem that I went from it from a walking across the path, and I think the first affected party was from those townhouses that you were talking about across the way. There's this negative that you guys have with a giant reflective surface, right? You kept talking about reflective. Well, the lake is your biggest issue because this property is lakefront. I think the biggest thing that I look at it as from when we're trying to review these applications is if every single person on the lake did this project, right? They all had this same level of lighting. How would that impact the
and that's where I think if it were me, if I could be in control, I would say, you could go through the Dark Sky International and say, hey, everybody do this lighting, and that would be an easy way to do it. The problem is you get reflectance. We're not getting reflectance from the lake itself, like because the lights are either up or down and they're pointing at a specific direction. The lake, the only thing it does is it gives a plane so you get sight of light. That's why I said like the two neighbors across the lake had lighting that really is in total compliance, but had a ton of glare, and that's bug rating on lights, how much glare is being produced. So the reflectance that you would have, trees don't really reflect light as much as maybe a surface. If you have a painted surface, white surfaces reflect a lot more, obviously. He doesn't have that on his house. Especially in the back, it's really, there are some lights on the front of the house, but they are being captured on the soffit, so it's not getting into the light sky. So that's why I say it's two separate issues. You have the light, is the night sky being protected? And then the second one is there light trespass? The third thing is there the overall feel of light, like, is there more light on this property than others? So there's there's a property across the lake on the other side that's fully lit up that wasn't done by a designer. And personally, I saw light glare and everything else from that one. So, we really do try and say, let's keep the lumen count down. And it's really candle power is what we're talking about. Keep the candle power down and have the candle power diminishing as we go up the tree, and make sure that by the time it gets closer to the top that it's dissipated fully. But yeah, that would be it's not an easy regulation to say, hey, let's just follow dark sky or and give up lighting, or let's just live in the dark. But I would say, like, if everybody were to design lighting correctly, and if there was a requirement to do a light trespass study on every property, that would be a great thing for the community.
And what impact do you think on the design would it have if, because I felt like there's these lights emanating from the top of the tree, which is not.
Well, there's downlighting.
Natural.
The lights on the top of the tree tend to be downlighting, putting light down back onto the ground. So they have long shrouds on them and glare guards. The light going into the tree, there's a cherry tree in front. There's 3 river birch trees in back. So you could take it and you could say, let's put one light and say that suffice to light up the tree. The issue I see with it actually makes the trunk of the tree brighter because you're putting light straight up the tree. Most people, what they do is they overlight that. They overcompensate to get more of the tree by making a brighter light. I'd rather go soft or pull the lights a little further off the tree. Like if you looked at most of them, they're a minimum of 24 inches off. Cherry tree was about 3 to 4 feet off of the cherry tree in front. So that we could not have as much brightness on the trunk, get a little bit more into the canopy and make it look soft. We tend to look at like every tree as being like if you're lighting a statue or lighting a work of art, where we want it lit up in a 360-degree feel, and then trying to do it as softly as possible and beautifully as possible.
All right, well, let me go around the room and see if anyone has any questions for you guys. So if you could stay unmuted, so if someone has a question they can ask you, that would be great. Samantha, do you have any questions for the kind of lighting expert here?
I do not, but should I go ahead to share my comments?
Yeah,
or
go for it. Yeah, I think it's a great time to use it.
Okay.
Go for it.
So, well, thank you for the effort of trying to mitigate these lighting things. We all bind to Reston design guideline as a community, and the Reston does a special place. And so we have some rule that may not happen in other community, but does happen in us. in this light situation, my understanding is our design guideline was the in general baseline is 6 light per property, and they either is shining the pathway or shining at the house. This application have 76 light, 44 of them are uplight. I just don't see, I say that in the past, but I'm saying this again, I just don't see how can we support this and also bind with our guideline principle. And that will be my comments.
Okay. Sarah, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions, just comment that I think that this starts to touch upon some areas in our design guide that we don't have a good guideline for. But I think that the way that the applicant has approached this and the things that they have done has the type of design finesse is something that we would want to look at. We are still looking at cafe lights and the challenges that we've had with that, and I almost see this scenario in line with, gosh, we just don't have our standards to address something like this. And I think that what we're seeing here would be like the gold standard for how we would approach this uplighting. If someone has a light on in their house, they're going to see that light from across the lake. It doesn't mean they shouldn't be having the light on, but it's on their property. It's not shining through. And this lighting is very well contained. It's just illuminating their property in an elegant way. So that's my comment on it. So thank you.
Okay. Camelia?
No comments. Thank you.
Emily?
Yes, thank you, Michael. I just want to say I had the opportunity to go past the house around 7 o'clock last night. So Michael, you and I may have passed each other. And my immediate comments are a couple. I do agree that typically more light fixtures at a lower wattage is going to be far preferable than having 4 hot spots and 4 security lights around this. They're much more disturbing. So the quantity of light fixtures does not really bother me. I actually walked past several of the houses that were in the neighbors and going down the street that had insanely bright motion sensor lights that I thought were much more disturbing, especially because those could be set off at any time of night by animals, and that's a security light, so they are a different standard. But I did find those more disturbing. I do want to make a special note and just draw attention to the fact that I think part of what is conflating how bright this house appears is actually the interior lights themselves, which is not part of this discussion from what we have oversight over, but it does heavily impact what this house looks like from the lake. The chandeliers, I believe, that are on the inside that I could see from across the lake are actually contributing to that overall glow in the tree canopy. The leaves are reflecting the interior light more than they're actually reflecting, the downlights point at the ground. So they're not contributing to the glow in the canopy. I do believe it's the interior lights that are really creating more glare on the neighboring properties. And we don't have a say on, what kind of chandelier somebody puts in their house or how bright it is or how often they have it on. But I do just want to note that I think that that's contributing to the confusion on this site. And if you completely turned off all of the interior lights on this property, that the landscape lighting would look very sedate and dim for the amount of fixtures that it is. So I also just think that like we mentioned, the house across the lake does have full uplighting. This house has full uplighting. It's just the fact that it's the neighbors on the side have no lighting at all that makes this stick out, because our eyes work that way. If everything is dark around it, we're going to be drawn to the light source. So I'd echo Sarah's thoughts that I don't think I mean, I think the big glare factors on this house have to do with the interior lighting, the porch light in the front, and things that aren't actually part of this application. The landscape lighting itself is, I think, done really well and not something that I would be upset seeing on other houses in the area, especially because they have it on a timer. I think that, you know, if we have our houses lit up like the 4th of July from, you know, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., that, and then we turn it off, that it's, you know, we have holiday lights, we have decorations, we have lots of stuff going on. So I just don't think that, you know, especially since it's on a timer and the landscape lighting itself is what we're talking about in this application, that I think it's done well and done with finesse and grace. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
I think Emily said what I was going to say. So thank you, Emily. I have no more comments.
Okay. Brian?
Yeah, I think I appreciate the efforts that have been made to mitigate the lights over time, and I appreciate hearing from the experts tonight. I have really learned a lot, and I have no issues with the lighting on the front side of the house. It is extremely bright, but you know, it is so well kind of screened with landscaping and stuff like this. But I do have concerns about the backyard. You know, as we saw from the street side, we went to the lake side as well. You know, there is like a glow from this house from the street side created by the lights, I think, in the backyard, because you're seeing the lights so high up in the tree, the really intense light on the stone, I'm not sure what it is. The stone feature at the back, and and then going across the lake. I think that's the issue. Is, and everything I've heard everything tonight, it makes sense, but the setting of it is so different. Being on the lake, it stands in such contrast to everything else around it, and the efforts that I think everyone else has made to, you know, keep it low lighting. This one just stands out like such a beacon, and I'm not saying it's not done well. I just think there's too much light in the backyard. I do not understand the lighting up high in the tree. I think that's creating a big issue. I think it's glowing over on the other side of the house and things like that. I don't really foresee, I don't really understand the need for it, to be quite honest. I understand the landscape lights kind of at you know, the ground level for security and safety and things like that, but I am really troubled by the lights in the tree. And I think that I think it just stands out in such contrast to the neighborhood and the lake setting that I do, even though a lot of mitigation efforts have been made so far, I honestly do think that we've got to reduce the lights, the number of lights in the backyard. I completely agree with Emily, by the way. When I was there on Sunday night, every light in the house was on, and so that did contribute. That probably is contributing to the effect that it was having. But again, that I agree, that's outside of our purview. There's nothing we can really do about that. But the whole effect of it was just kind of so strong in the context of everything else that I think some adjustments are needed.
Thank you, Brian. Mike B.
I don't have anything else to add that hasn't already been said there, Michael. So I'll reserve comment at this point. Thank you.
Staff, is it possible to pull up the picture I sent or even the video? Just I want to point out, like, I think it's this light. These lights up in the tree, and I know Brian just mentioned it. They're the biggest, I think, contributor to the issue of, yeah, so like right there on the left, if you go back and if you go to the image actually that I sent, we can just zoom in on the image so we're not kind of having the video constantly go back and forth. I think it's one of the culprits. It's one of these SL23s that are up in the trees that are facing. No, I sent one picture. I think these were from Emily. Yeah, the front lighting, I think, is, you know, it is what it is. I don't.
And I'll note that I had my exposure turned up to 10 seconds, so you can actually see stars, and I was here in the pitch black.
Yeah, so like right here, this picture, if you zoom in towards the fireplace, I think what it is, there's like there's like one light that's up in the tree that's shining towards, I guess maybe it's toward the dock. And if you go to the plan, It looks like it's like an SL23, and I think it's shooting down towards the dock, I think is the thought process with it. I don't know if you can zoom in there, but if you go to the plan on sheet 48, and maybe somebody, the designer can speak to this. And if you zoom in on the tree that's directly west of the dock or to the left of the dock in the backyard, so plan right, and then cursor down, right, up one tree up, right there. Yeah, right where your cursor is, zoom in on that. So is the applicant still on? So that one SL23, so this tree has 3 lights up in it high. I mean, it's acting like a lamppost, basically. Is this one light is shining directly towards the lake on the right-hand side there?
No, it's that one's shining straight down. So that one's just getting the ground around it. And that's kind of the issue I talked about with the dark sky agency group, is like downlighting is great. And I don't think it's that one. I think if you go up a little bit, if you look at the light shining onto the chimney or the fire pit, there's a downlight on the fire pit, on one of the fire pits over on the left side. So there's a downlight shining onto the fire pit, and it's the reflectant light off of the whiter stone on the fire pit. That is, the fire pit's down in the bottom right corner. I could look to see, we could have our engineers put in a different driver and see if we could get that down. I think it's at 230, 260 lumens with a glare guard in it and everything. So there's no glare coming off of that light, but there's 2 SL23s on it. We could go ahead and see if we could design a different driver and reduce that just as much as possible and soften that one up, because it is a white reflective stone. So although it's in total compliance with what most people say, like we're going to follow the dark sky, that's the glare side of things. And so we're trying to mitigate that as much as possible. So if you'd like me to work on that, I've got my own engineer team, and we could look to see like how soft can we get that to make it so it's just very muted.
Yeah,
But that's that white stone.
it just seems like if you go to slide like 41, where like I assume this is kind of like a 3D photometric rendering kind of thing. It seems like, based on what I've seen in person, lights up in the trees are completely disregarded in this 3D rendering. It doesn't seem like they're in it. And maybe, and I know they're supposed to be downlights. I get that. Maybe they need to go down to your mini downlight that you guys offer that can only has like a max, has much smaller. I don't know if that would help. Once again, I'm not a lighting designer, I'm just an architect. But maybe there's something that it just seems like those lights are what is contributing to the factor. I think the rest of the lights, I'm not opposed to. They're not giving me heartburn. It's really those lights that are up in the tree that give like this lamppost effect, because like even for like shopping centers, we max out at a certain height that you can even have a light be as tall, right? And so I just feel like no matter how high it's up, no matter how much it's directed downwards, it's still gonna shoot out the light. And it'd be much better if it was at 10 feet high versus
that light's not, and the like shopping centers generally have like, kind of wall packs, or they have shoebox lights, so they don't have any glare protection at all. And these are obviously focused on a spot. So the light trespass study is looking at an overhead shot of, it looks mitigated on the trees lighting up, because we're designing it so the light doesn't go past the tree source is what we're trying to do. But you could see in that chimney photo right there, that fireplace, that it looks brighter. And that's the reflective white stone that our models show. So, if that will help, I'm very happy to, I personally, as a lighting designer, I want to be in compliance, and we want to be good neighbors, because, bad lighting, we talked about security lighting. I hate cafe lighting or bistro lighting. It's omnidirectional. And, if we could outlaw it, I would, I would love to. But, so that was a good point. But I say, like, anything we could do to soften it and mute it. And like I said, like, I always go back to basic lighting design is like, if you're lighting a room with candles, you could have 100 candles and it doesn't feel overpowering. It feels beautiful and romantic, where one big spotlight could be annoying. Going up higher in a tree, if you have a light that has glare, that's your issue with like street lighting. If you have a light that's completely controlled, the higher up, the softer you're going to be able to make that light. But we could go ahead and say like, hey, if we could get that down to like 150 lumens, like 130 lumens and just soften that chimney, that's something we could definitely look to do.
Yeah, and I would also recommend softening. I get the point of what the light is doing toward the dock, but
Yeah.
I think that also is not helping. I mean, if you look at your
Okay.
photometric study, you know, it's reading a reading of 10, 8.2 right on top of the dock, and then it's 5 at the water's edge. And
Yeah.
it's all coming from that one SL23 in the tree. I think, you know, I'm not opposed to lighting the dock, but maybe, you know, some mushroom lights or the more walk pathway lighting would be much more successful at lighting that, because I think, unfortunately, that light is one of the ones, you know, that is directed, one of the only ones that is directed toward the lake. And I think it's contributing to some of the issues across the lake that people are complaining, because no one else is kind of lighting from that high up to their dock. A lot of them have much more, you know, pathway lighting-esque down there. And I would be much prefer pathway lighting to the dock versus kind of trying to light this thing up from above. It would be much more preferred to have more pathway lighting than more lighting up in the trees. That's just kind of my gut feeling. That'll help the situation. So I mean, obviously the board is, you know, we have a lot of different conflicting opinions.
Yeah. Can I say
So-
something, Michael? I would like to.
Yeah, go for it.
So, gosh, it sounds like the can wants to be kicked down the road again. And I have been, this is my third meeting, fourth if you count the one that I had in the wrong date. So now we're talking about potentially a fourth meeting. And I have to tell you, these meetings take your time, and these changes and these trespass studies cost us money, a lot of money. And I've twisted into a pretzel. I've spent lots and lots on this, and I'm just, and I agree with one of the board members that said, there's no clear standard in the guidelines. There are no clear standards. There's no lumen standards. I don't even think the guidelines say the 6 lights per property that was referred to. But I want to just say, when I look at your the DRB and the section that talks about an affected party as any owner of a property subject to the amended rest in deed, including but not limited to the board of directors or cluster and condominiums whose agents register, okay, who are materially impacted by the use or design of another property owner. And I guess that's what I'm getting at, is materially. Now, we talk about nature and we talk about peace, but this lighting brings my wife and my family both security and joy. And I'm, again, I feel like we've done a lot here. And I'd like to bring it to a vote tonight, please.
Okay. To vote, we have to have a motion. So, does anyone want to make a motion? Anyone want to make a?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, that's right.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application as submitted.
Okay.
I second.
All right. Any further discussion on it? I think the only thing I would say is that I'm worried. Our standards. So for the record, our standards are 8 fixtures per property. Without it, that requires no application. There's no maximum limit in our standards. It basically all is a subjective process at that point to then come to us and provide, the photometrics and provide the information that you have provided. I would say, and I don't know if I'm remembering incorrectly, but this is the first meeting I feel like we've had a fruitful discussion. I feel like there's been before, it's always been deferred because somebody wasn't here or there wasn't the experts here, or and I could have missed the meeting. I don't remember if this went to panel or not, but I do get that it takes time. But I know this is the first time I've discussed this in any sort of detail. So I could be wrong about that, but this is my first time that we've really dove into this. So there's a motion, there's a second. I'm going to take a roll call vote. So I can just have this for the record to make it easy. So I'm going to start with Samantha. Do you vote yes or no?
No.
Sarah, yes or no?
Yes.
Camelia, yes or no?
Yes.
Emily, yes or no?
Yes.
John, yes or no?
Yes.
Brian?
No.
Mike B?
Yes.
And I'm going to vote no. Motion passes 5-3 to 1 absentee. All right. That's why we're aboard.
I would just like to remind the applicant that there's still an opportunity for an affected party to appeal a decision. So any future changes need to wait until the disposition of the appeals procedures and process.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys for your time. All right. I think our next agenda item is calendar. LaShonda?
Yes, so this is very easy. I would just like to present the 2025 DRB calendar for your review. In response to the feedback that was received by the DRB, I tried to schedule panel meetings on the same day each month. So the calendar doesn't require formal approval. However, if you have any comments, feel free to share them with us.
Is this the comment like, I know there's a date in April I'm not, or in March I'm not gonna be able to do? Or do we save that until we get much closer to it?
We can make note of it. If you can't make it, that's fine. And at least we can find you a substitute ahead of time.
Yeah, hopefully not too close.
I was gonna say, you want to flip flop March now?
Yeah. Yeah, I can't do March 4th. So if anyone wants to switch with me.
Quick question. Are there board seats? Is there people that board seats are up where this might change anyway? I'm just curious.
So
Don't we do that in the summer? When do we do that?
Usually I feel like it's spring, but I could just be wrong.
Yeah. They all blend together, man.
It wouldn't change the panel color, it would change the chairs.
Well, right. That was the only thing I was bringing up. Is like whose seats are up is all I was wondering.
All of the vice chairs.
Sweet.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I just was curious. Just because I know if that changes, then the vice chairs change, and then it could potentially shift certain things. So just curious. Does anyone have any other comments on the schedule?
The only other thing that I'd like to make a comment on is perhaps, looking into 2025, it would be beneficial to carve out, just like we've set aside certain like special meetings to tackle standards that we know are going to be an issue ahead of time, rather than tacking them on to an already like long running meeting where we know we're all going to be tired and at the end of a full DRB. If we could just say like every 6 months or, however we want to do it, we sit and we have a special meeting and to bring up the standards, things like cafe lights, landscape lighting, limit of disturbance and, new builds. I know there's a couple of things that are fencing, things that we've been, tackling as they come up. Would it be smart to try and get ahead of that and say, let's just go ahead and carve out time? And then if we don't need them for any reason, although I can't imagine that there won't be stuff that comes up, then we could just, cancel and not have the meeting. Thoughts?
Or like almost even have it as like a standing work session, so to speak, just in case if there's a Reston Town Center North as an example where we had to do a whole poll. We already have it all on our calendar, so we know.
Exactly. Like carving out that time for special circumstances and unique situations.
I think it's a good idea.
You most certainly could do that. But my 2 cents is going to be, the DRB and staff have worked diligently over the last 2 years to bring changes to the design guidelines to fruition. And my observations have been that maybe that approach is not consistent with what Reston Association actually needs, which is a completely fresh slate of design guidelines that actually prescribe what is and what is not permitted. I think we've run into that situation time and time again, and that the design guidelines only scope out at this review level, this is acceptable, at this review level, this is acceptable. There is nothing in there other than white stone, red mulch, and round timbers that is exclusively prohibited. And so if you're going to go down that road, I think a work session specifically to talk about the design guidelines is most certainly needed. I think what we're currently working through with the board, presenting design guideline changes, is really a Band-Aid to an overall complete rehaul of the design guidelines as we know it.
Well, then we might need to meet more than once every 6
I was gonna
months.
say that sounds like a lot of work. You want to do like a Z-mod. You want to do what the county just did, where they just basically put out a whole new zoning ordinance and rewrote the way it's written.
It's a different Reston than it used to be. It's probably worth updating some things in a more meaningful way rather than, as Cam put it, band-aiding it.
Yeah, and Michael, to your point, that's exactly what I think that you're going to run into with the example that you gave, which is Reston Town Center North. There is no standard, there is no design guideline that gives guidance for 6-story buildings in Reston Association. There's nothing that is referenced there. And so what design guideline is the DRB really adhering to? And that's a conversation that we have had internally for quite some time. And I do think that it may be time to begin to look at that and really have that conversation with the board. We used to do a joint meeting with the board, the DRB and covenants. I think we might want to bring that back in 2025 and really sit down and have that conversation, what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's with buildings of that magnitude, I think the DRB process is subjective at the end of the day. And I think there's certain ways that we can lessen the load on staff by making things very objective and saying, okay, these things are not permissible, these things are, and it's end of story, right? But on certain things like that, I can't see where you would have a prescriptive guideline that basically, I don't want to design these buildings for people with our guidelines. So I definitely think it's warranted to have a meeting to discuss commercial infill or whatever we want to call it. Because I think at that point it is going to be a very subjective process when things, and that's why, honestly, it took, 25 meetings to even get through a conceptual street grid for Reston Town Center North, right? Because certain people want certain things, board members change, and so it's it's not one of the factors. I think we've been pretty amenable to what they want to do. It's more of them driving the time and the timeline of it. But I agree. I think we can have some discussion. I do think the board meeting is a good one. I remember doing one of those. It's probably been 3 years since we've done that, 4 years maybe, with the full board and the board of directors. So.
With the board of directors, I was going to say that was pre my time. So that's got to be 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Lord.
Yeah, I remember sitting down and it was like, I don't know if they had a full board, but they had a pretty decent amount of, I think there was maybe 6 of the members there. And we had maybe, I don't know. Cam, were you around? Were you here for that, Cam? You know what I'm talking about? With
yes,
her
it
name?
was
Jennifer.
Sarah.
Jennifer. I remember was on the board. There was the other guy, I can't remember his name. But anyways, But yes, I do think that's worth it. Um,
Can I chime in here real quick?
yeah.
So, I would just say, I think that that would be a good idea. I think, many, if not all of the board would be amenable to that. I know there are concerns that, there's always those slippery slopes, things that slide through and once they're allowed, right? And that becomes concerns for everyone. So I think to have conversations of what you guys see for the future of Reston and what the board sees for the future of Reston would be a great thing, because it would be a real shame to change the look of Reston accidentally.
Agreed.
Well put.
So it sounds like we have a good plan, and it sounds like there's no objections to the current calendar.
Agreed.
I mean, only if I would prefer to be the orange panel. I don't, that's my favorite
No
color.
orange.
But other than that, I mean, it's fine.
Sounds good. There is one item for new business. I did want to bring to your attention, while we're talking about Reston Town Center North. There was a doodle poll that we sent out to ask for quorum for a full DRB meeting that would be a work session for Reston Town Center North that was scheduled for December 3rd. Unfortunately, it's come to our attention that there was a resolution that was created late last year that was surrounded around the Land Use Committee and the establishment of the Land Use Committee, which the resolution established parameters and guidance on requirements for developers to go through the Land Use Committee for covenanted property. And therefore, we have kind of created a situation where Reston Association Board of Directors, Reston Association wants to ensure that they have an opportunity to participate, since these things, Reston Town Center North goes to the DRB for review. I think that there's a goal to make sure that Reston Association's groups are all kind of aligned in terms of the direction that's provided to what happens to Reston Town Center North. And so there has been a change to the work session, in which the work session is now going to start with, because of not quorum requirements, because of notification requirements with any type of work session for the DRB. They unfortunately didn't meet the notification requirements because of the change. And so the meeting has been moved to December 10th, which is the following Tuesday, at 6:30. And it will be a land use committee meeting in which land use will be hosting a meeting in which other groups of Reston Association will be able to participate and provide feedback to the Reston Town Center North applicant as it relates to the green space that is currently up for their submission to, as they work through their submission to the zoning process. So that's
Say
a
that
slide
date
take.
again, if you
December
don't mind,
10th.
Cam. December 10th. Thank you, sir.
And is it in person, or is it? So it's not a DRB meeting. I'm.
That's correct. It's not a DRB meeting. And that's really more of a technicality reason. DRB work sessions for redevelopment follow Resolution 11, which requires 21 days in advance notification to the membership and to potential affected parties. And because we were still figuring out the logistics for what we discovered to be the land use committee's kind of first stab, they missed the notification requirements to go to a full DRB meeting on December 3rd. And so here we are, the meeting to ensure that they have an opportunity before the end of the year to get feedback and include the DRB, the park Parks and Rec Advisory Committee as well as the Environmental Advisory Committee can still provide that feedback because it was really more of an informal meeting to begin with the DRB. There was no approval that was being requested from the DRB as it related to this. They were more so just trying to get feedback as they submitted their application to the zoning process. So it's December 10th at 6:30. It will be hybrid is my understanding. So any DRB member that is available can attend, but it won't require quorum of the DRB since it's not a DRB meeting.
So Cam, if we attend the meeting on the 10th, are we attending as like, are people going to ask like for DRB members' opinions? Or are we joining as like just individual resident homeowners?
That choice would be yours, but I would imagine that you would be invited because you are a DRB member, and so DRB member feedback will be requested. So any member can attend a meeting and address a committee as a member as well as a committee member. So in this particular venue, we would be asking for feedback from DRB members. So you would be speaking as a DRB member, like you would at a DRB meeting.
But I won't have to run it.
Correct.
Sweet. I get to just hang out, give my opinion.
Just
Then
relax.
I won't be able to talk as much. That'll be an issue.
I'm sure you'll have plenty of opportunity, Michael.
You will not have a 3-minute limit, I'm sure. But
Right.
yes, I'm sure anyone on this board that would like to speak and give their knowledge would be welcome to do so.
I've got a stupid question. I feel bad for asking this, but Cam, can you tell us what the land use committee is? Where who's on it, where it comes from? Like, I'm sorry that I'm asking that, but
I think it's something Walter Alcorn set up. Like
No.
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 So
not that.
the RA Board of Directors created the Land Use Committee late last year.
Some
And
of
the intent- yes, it was created. And I believe the intent of the group was to ensure that any kind of development that was happening in Reston Association, whether it was covenanted property or non-covenanted property. So if you all remember reviewing the Isaac Newton Square situation a couple of maybe a year or so ago, it was intended to ensure that Reston Association had some sort of participation and some sort of guidance to be able to provide input to these types of projects that are happening. And so the Land Use Committee was created. Several of the Land Use Committee members are former board members or current board members, as well as members of the community. So they are members. It is a board committee technically. And they provide recommendations or information and review any SPA changes that happen in and around Reston and inform the board in terms of positions or thoughts that the board should consider as they potentially submit those applications and then go through their own process. And generally speaking, what we've seen is, especially with the Isaac Newton Square property, it was built into proffer that they had to come to the DRB, even though that property is not subject to Reston Association's covenants. So things like that, the Land Use Committee is following and tracking, and then providing recommendations or information to the board so that the board is aware and can take a position if they so choose. Margaret, did I capture that correctly?
Yes, and if I recall, Cam, we also RA now does have a land use position that works alongside that committee.
That
We
is
did
correct.
hire someone for that. Correct, Cam?
That is correct. There is
Yeah.
a land use planner now on our staff.
So it's and whether it was the right time to commit, it was created, and hopefully it will work out. But I would encourage you all to participate and give your knowledge and guidance, because I do think it's important for all committees to be involved.
And I will add one last bit because I see some faces. The resolution, which I'm happy to send to you all, it explicitly says that this committee does not supersede the DRB's review. They are the DRB is independent agency, so your process is your process. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that as well.
That is correct. This is supposedly more along the lines of trying to hopefully get the new developments to join RA, right? Which we lost under Supervisor Hudgens, right? That disappeared at that period in time. It's also, like Cam stated, to watch those applications that go into the county, to make sure that we're protecting anything that we need to be, making sure Walter knows if we have a position on anything. So this does not circumvent the DRB in any way.
Can I ask a question? I'm just curious from a professional status. So like if a property is in RA now, right? We have the developer has to go through if they're changing the use of the land, or if they're doing whatever, they have to do a development plan amendment, and it has to be approved by the Board of Supervisors for Fairfax. At what point does the land use committee get a say, or even, I mean, how would they even know to go to the land use committee before going and getting the site plan amendment or the development plan amendment?
We are working.
Go ahead, Cam.
Go ahead. We are working through creating a process in which that is clear to the developers. But quite honestly, we're dealing with that right now with Reston Town Center North.
Okay.
And so our desire is to make that as transparent as possible for the applicant, the DRB, and the land use committee. But our approach has been that if the DRR staff, design review staff, is approached, we are to inform them of the land use committee and what process that has established, which does establish kind of some steps that they need to follow. The resolution gives them guidance as to what they're required to do if they are covenanted or non-covenanted property. So it's really just an internal standard operating procedure on how our team is going to ensure that when we're approached, how do we navigate direction and how do we make that process transparent for the applicant?
Yeah, I mean, it's just news to me. Like, I mean, I may or may not be working on a property, and this is news to me. I didn't even know this existed. So
You would have found out eventually.
yeah, well, right, and that's the issue. Yeah, once a bunch of money spent. I mean, luckily it's not my money. But I'm more wondering. Yeah, okay. Just curious. Just curious.
And at this point, and Cam, you can correct me, a lot of what that committee is currently doing is watching and going out and making the touch point, right? Making that touch point, saying, hey, you got to come speak to us, or we'd like you to come speak to us, or that kind of thing.
Well, that's what I would say is, like, I mean, right now the county is basically recommending these pre-application meetings before kind of submitting anything, and trying to, if it's a coveted piece of property under our deed, I would say that, land use committee should be part of that pre-app meeting, because that's very influential on the next steps of what the developer is going to take. The DRB, I would love to be there, but I think that's a little, it's too soon for us necessarily. But I think if this committee exists, which it does, I think that would be part. And so I don't know, I forget the name of the lady they recommended to me at the county, but they said she's the Reston expert. I forget her name at the county. I want to almost find it and share it with you, Cam. Because
Is
if
it
we
Joan?
say it again.
Joan?
Yes, Joan. Yeah.
I'm familiar.
Okay, so as long as in my opinion, if she's involved, right, I think then the land use committee should be notified, because then it probably is a Reston property.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that's why maybe one of the reasons why there's now a land use planner on staff to be able to follow these and
Okay.
ensure that that communication is happening.
Okay, cool.
Because that person is the goal and the design behind that staff position was to work hand in hand with the county positions.
Who's that staff member? I'm just curious. Do we have a name?
Natalie Syria.
Natalie. Okay, cool.
So that was our update. So I will be sending you all a communication probably tomorrow sometime. I will include the land use committee resolution. And if anyone wants any specific contacts or follow up with the chair of the land use committee, I'll make sure that that communication is there as well. I think it's always helpful to be connected with other volunteer groups. This is clearly a similar member-led group. Some of you probably have seen Michelle Kimmo is the chair of the land use committee. So I will make sure that that's sent out tomorrow. But if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to shoot us an email. We're happy to answer anything that we can if you want to have a one-on-one call or something like that.
Cool. Anyone have any other questions, comments, motions?
Motion to adjourn.
That was quick. I'll second.
That one.
It took a while to get a second. Everyone else fell asleep. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, guys.
Have a good night, y'all.
Bye. Thanks.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Black Friday.